Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in Mackey Arena, this time following Purdue's 95-78 win over Penn State. I am on the other side of Mackey Arena. Someone, again, is occupying my side of the arena to do wonderful things for humanity, and I've been moved. I've been put out by this, and people, I am kidding, okay? If you're sitting there getting all mad and wanting to torch me on YouTube for being a jerk because I'm acting put out because Ross-Ade is signing autographs, please ask yourself this question. A, have I ever watched more than one of these videos? If the answer is yes, ask yourself, does this person take himself seriously? If the answer to that is no, move on to your next question. Is it possible that ridiculously self-important thing he just said might have been a joke? If that answer is yes, please just step away from your keyboard, spare yourself the agony of torching me on YouTube for being a jerk, and move on with your life. Thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support of this ranting and raving lunacy that I do after these games. But I am kidding, everyone. I am kidding. I am joking. This was no joke. Purdue wins 95-78 over Penn State. Obviously an overmatched Penn State team. One that didn't really stand much of a chance here to pull an upset on the road. Obviously, Penn State's in a difficult place, as a lot of schools that have gone undergone. See, I'm so flustered by the anger that was directed at me after that game a few weeks ago that I can't even get a word out of my mouth. A lot of schools who undergo coaching changes are going to be in the position Penn State's in right now, because everyone leaves with the last coach. Everyone leaves, period. And then that next coach has to go recruit a bunch of dudes. I don't know how many of these dudes came with Mike Rhodes from VCU. I know Ace Baldwin did. But there's just not a lot of continuity here, obviously. These are the kind of seasons you just have to eat when you're in situations like this. And, Penn State was ripe for the picking here for Purdue to not just beat but blow out. And this game was not as close as the final score of 95-78 reflects. This was the equivalent in practical terms of a 30-point Purdue win, the sort of win that doesn't come along very often in Big Ten play. But that's how good Purdue was, and that's how overmatched, Penn State was. I think, and I could be wrong here, but the last couple of games have been really, really frustrating, I'd imagine, for Ross-Ade. The foul trouble against Illinois, the outcome against Nebraska, on top of just the difficulties for him to kind of get in a little bit of a rhythm in terms of getting the ball and, getting the ball where he needs it, and, kind of things like that. This kind of felt like him blowing off steam. He gets 30 and 20, not easy to do, but also 3 assists, 3 block shots, but 30 and 20 is not bad. And I just thought he played with kind of a edge to him, kind of an anger to him. He might disagree with that, I don't know, but he seemed super pissed after the Nebraska game, as I'm sure a lot of people associated with Purdue were. And it kind of felt to me like after that first couple minutes that were a little clunky here against Penn State, or a couple turnovers, things like that, it just felt like he was sort of taking all those frustrations out on Penn State. Things really loosened up for him and Braden Smith. I think this is the first time in a little while that you've seen the best of that combination that was so good in non-conference play, and so good through a few Big Ten games here. But the last couple of games has been bottled up a little bit, stymied a little bit, for lack of a better term. Braden Smith gets 11 assists, and he didn't say in the press conference afterwards that that's kind of a magic number, getting into double digits. But I know players in the past have really put a lot of stock in that, really wanted to hit that number. And how often does it happen? You don't see that in college basketball the way you do the NBA. It just doesn't happen very often. 11 assists is a pretty big deal, even if it, at the end of the day, doesn't matter all that much. It did matter in this game because Smith was really the driving force behind that 26-2 run, whatever the hell that run was. 26-2 is what I have written down, but I think it might have been even bigger than that. It was all Edey to start that, but according to my illegible notes, Edie, but all of them in parentheses have a BS next to them, and that doesn't stand for what you think it stands for. That is my denotation for the assist maker, and that was Braden Smith. Thus the BS, Braden Smith. And then Braden Smith makes a 3 as part of that run too. It was kind of a joint run between Zach Edey and Braden Smith. And then as soon as Edey and Smith got going, then all of a sudden Edey touches the ball. Edey gets a hockey assist to Braden Smith for a 3 via Ethan Morton as the layover player. And then Edey gets an entry from the corner for Mason Gillis, draws all the help, immediately throws it right back out to Mason Gillis. He makes a 3. Just a really dominant stretch from a really dominant player as a scorer, as a finisher, as a rebounder, and as a passer. And that's the more complete version of Zach Edey that I think you're seeing this year. One of those buckets he got was him running the floor, trailing the play for a little dump-off dunk on a pass from Braden Smith. It's not what you expect 7'4", 300 to do. That was something that showed that, this guy is not a plotter necessarily. People just look at the dimensions. They watch him play a little bit in certain situations, and they think he's just a battleship that just sails to the front of the rim and just drops anchor. It's not really true. He's much more mobile than anyone would ever think. He's much more dynamic than anyone would think. He's just a much more complete offensive player this year, and he's pretty good. And that's probably something I don't have to repeat over and over again, but I do anyway because I need to fill my time here. I have quotas to meet. I get paid by the 5-second interval of video content. Okay, Braden Smith and Zach Edey, we have talked about them. I thought that Ethan Morton played great off the bench from a defensive perspective. Kanye Clary is one of the fastest, quickest guards that Purdue's going to see all season. And he was the biggest. He and Ace Baldwin, I thought, were really going to be a handful for Purdue from a half-court dribble containment perspective and from a transition perspective. And I think Purdue did a really nice job kind of bottling them up. Didn't foul them very often. I thought the one thing that was going to have to fall in place for Penn State in this game, if they were going to have any chance to be in this game, let alone win this game, I thought was they were going to have to pick up a bunch of fouls on Purdue off the dribble and then get in the bonus and then just keep driving those guys and try to just steal points at the foul line. That never happened. Purdue did a good job keeping those guys bottled up without fouling. I know Clary got his 16 points, but they came on 16 shots. You'll take that every day of the week. He is a good player. He is a really good player. He is one of the few holdovers on this team from Micah Shrewsbury. He and former Purdue commitment Jameel Brown both are holdovers, and Jameel Brown made 3 threes in this game and gave them a little bit of a spark there for a bit. So this wasn't just the guys that Mike Rhodes had to bring in on a moment's notice. This was the guys Micah Shrewsbury kind of left behind too, who really put a lot of points on the board. But as I said earlier, this game was not a 95-78 final. This was a game that Purdue essentially won by 30, and had Purdue not taken its foot off the gas kind of late there, Purdue could have scored 120 points in this game. It was that sort of game for them. Obviously, Edey gets going. Obviously, Braden Smith gets going. But Purdue's 20 of 29 from it's free throws. Never mind. They were 11 of 24 from 3. What were they in the first half? They were 8 of 16 in the first half. When Purdue shoots like this and doesn't turn the ball over, I don't think anybody's beating them. And there is a direct causation behind Purdue's 2 Big Ten losses, and those are turnovers and the impact thereof. And I just think Edey plus 3-point shooting plus limiting turnovers is damn near unbeatable. It just is. And I think you saw that tonight, albeit this wasn't exactly Kansas in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, whatever it might be. This wasn't exactly Purdue playing at Wisconsin here in a couple weeks. In terms of the magnitude of this game, the upset factor in this game, but nevertheless, you saw what Purdue's capable of from an offensive perspective here today. You saw what they were capable of from a defensive perspective here today, and you saw them just take care of business, and you saw them bounce back from a frustrating loss and just beat the hell out of somebody. And that was, we've been talking about this a little bit. This season shows a little bit of maturity. It shows a little bit of focus, kind of things like that. I don't think either of Purdue's losses, were Purdue not showing up. I think Nebraska just shot the hell out of the ball. I think Northwestern just benefited from turnovers. Turnovers were part of both of these games. And I just don't think that was a matter of Purdue letting down, so to speak, or falling into a quote-unquote trap game. I think it was just the opponent doing things that made them really hard to beat on those given nights, and Purdue turning the ball over. Not just turning the ball over, but turning the ball over in an impactful way. The points off turnovers, as I wrote yesterday, that is now the new hot button stat for Purdue to gauge their success or lack thereof in a game. Turnovers, yes, but the impact of those turnovers, I think, is more telling of how Purdue would have fared. Penn State still gets 17 points off turnovers. I'd throw that out here in this case because, Purdue was up by 20-some points most of the game, played the last 10 minutes of the game with basically being powered down the last 5 minutes with, the backups on the floor, things like that. So the stats got warped a little bit there, but Northwestern, Nebraska, the impact of those turnovers was a pretty big deal. And I think that it was what decided those games. And it's Purdue's single biggest hot button from here on out. Turnovers, but beyond that, the impact of those turnovers. So not an issue in a game like this. Purdue could have turned the ball over way more than it did, given up way more points than it did, and I don't think it would have mattered. But the start of the game, Purdue committed a couple of turnovers. That kept this close for a couple minutes, and then Purdue took off. And the game played out the way the game should have played out. So I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say. There's really nothing. This went on longer than I expected it to. I'm still probably half asleep from going to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern time after that Nebraska game the other night, after driving from Lincoln to Omaha in the pitch blackness. So if I'm a little bit sluggish, if I don't have my normal charisma, if I haven't brightened your day with my sunny personality like I normally do, that's why. So I'll talk to you guys again Tuesday night from Assembly Hall in Bloomington. Perhaps you've heard of it. We'll see how that game goes. But that's what I got from Purdue's 95-78 win over Penn State here in Mackey Arena. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. And thank you for processing our materials. However it is you process our materials. And I thank you again to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support as always. We appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys again Tuesday night from Bloomington. Thanks, everybody.